rough kind of clothing, and they have edged weapons, and they're fighting amongst themselves. And I'm thinking, oh man, this can't possibly be the target he would pick. This is just, I've got to be off. This is just crazy. Right about then, he said, okay, that's enough. I'm convinced. I'm going, what? I thought I'd blown it, and he's telling me I didn't. He said, here, and he tossed the paper across the table, and I unfolded about 6 times, and it's Battle of Hastings, 1066.
Wow.
So that was both interesting from the fact that I was able to persuade this guy, but also interesting from the fact that it tells us something about time, in that I was able to remote view and have the experience of the Battle of Hastings as if it were still happening, in a way. Now, how that is in the past, because we know it's not happening anymore. Everybody there is dead and nothing but bones, if that, by now. The landscape's different, everything. And I have never had any preconception about how the Battle of Hastings would have looked. So this experience I'm having, this inner experience I'm having in the remote viewing session, was just kind of new. It was novel. And I had no expectation of it being real or anything. And so what does that mean? Well, it means, apparently, that I was tapping into something that had literal information and maybe a portrayal of the events, or maybe it was the real event itself. Of course, we can't sort that out. But what puts this all together is the idea of the matrix, as described by the people who developed remote viewing, particularly a gentleman by the name of Ingo Swann, who perhaps many of your listeners are already familiar with his name, hopefully. He invented the term remote viewing. He invented the original protocol. It was then, of course, it developed more significantly at SRI, International Stanford Research Institute. And the theories that they developed there propose that there is a sort of, I don't know, hyperspatial, wherever it is,
Well, let's try to describe it, because you can detect and describe a location as far away as the other side of the globe without the aid of the usual 5 senses.
Uh-huh.
So
the idea is that all information in the universe about any target you might remote view.
And what do you mean by a target for the average person who doesn't have a context for that word?
A target is whatever you're asked to remote view, essentially. It's going to be something generally concrete. It's going to be a place or a person or an event or a object, something like that. And then you can get both concrete details about it, properties and qualities, colors, tastes, and you can also get abstract things about it. It has to do with tourism, it has to do with the military. See, those are not things that are innate in a physical object. Those are things we have to conclude about it. So you can get abstract and concrete information about these things. And you sometimes can even pick up on people's mental content, but we won't worry about that right now. The kinds of things. So according to Ingo's theory, the idea is that there's the matrix. It's kind of like the Akashic Records, but the Akashic Records has to do more with things with moral implications, karmic sorts of things. This is neutral according to that. It's just the repository of all information about the universe. And
both animate and inanimate, correct?
Both, yes. Animate, inanimate, and
unlimited by time and space?
I'm sorry?
It's unlimited by time and space?
Well, that's hard to say. We don't know what it is. Time,
the source of the data.
Yeah, it's data, and it's sort of independent. Let's put it that way. It's independent of time and space. So when you access something in the past, then your consciousness goes, and I use put little scare quotes around goes. Your consciousness then obtains information from the matrix to provide to you so that you can report on what it is you've perceived. And it holds all this information and certainly everything about the past. So the example I often like to use is the Eiffel Tower. The matrix has every possible detail about the Eiffel Tower, from its original raw materials to its planning, to the smelting process that provided the steel that built it, to the actual building of it, and ultimately to its ultimate demise. there's a little bit of an issue there because I want to get back to time now. I've talked a bit about the matrix. I want to get back to time.
Can I just ask you one quick question before we go right to
Sure.
time, just to clarify to the listener? In an analogy, could we assert that the matrix functions like an infinite hard drive?
That's not a bad analogy.
Just to give a referential place
Yes.
for how to refer to it.
Yeah, let's just think of it in those terms. That's a good way of describing it. I've often talked about it as being a database, but that makes the image a little more.
Yeah, I think for the average person to really get the context of this, because it's so conceptual.
It's a hard drive, and
that never ends.
Access that. Yeah, or at least we can pick what we need out of it.
Okay.
Where we are in relation to that is of course, who knows that either. But okay, so the past may be stored in the matrix. When I say the present doesn't exist, it's because all the present really is the interface between the past and the future. It's where what's happened comes together with what hasn't happened yet. And our impression of the future, of present, is just the fact that we have this short consciousness window. So it's about 1/10 of a second between what we perceive on the outside becomes registered and comes into our conscious awareness. Our subconscious recognizes things in real time. Our conscious awareness, the part of us that's waking and that we think is in charge of everything.
Can you define the subconscious, not to stop your flow of information, but people often confuse the subconscious with the unconscious and the superconscious. So I noticed in your book, there's a lot of reference to the subconscious being part of the process that allows, the mechanism that allows for accessing remote viewing. Can you explain it?
Well, probably not any better than anybody else can, but,
okay.
But subconscious, when I talk about subconscious, I actually kind of roll the unconscious into that. This idea about unconscious, subconscious, and superconscious and all the little divisions of that, those all are very theory-laden. If you're Freudian, you understand that one way. If you're Jungian, you understand it a different way. If you're a neuropsychologist, you understand it in a completely other way altogether. And the bottom line is nobody really knows what we're talking about when we're talking about subconscious, unconscious, and superconscious. It's basically different people have different theories about what all that means. When I use the term subconscious, I'm basically talking about everything that isn't conscious. So that might include everything, right?
Okay.
It's just the part of our mental functioning that we do not have awareness of, do not have direct awareness of. And frankly, that's about 9/10 of the iceberg. We have this illusion that our entire mental life is our conscious awareness, the part that we wake up to in the morning and that interacts with our computers and the people around us and makes us aware of ourselves. But frankly, most of the work is being done by our subconscious, not just our physical processing and keeping all the automatic systems running, perceiving, addressing things that we aren't consciously aware of. In fact, all of our sensory processes come into our subconscious first. And then our subconscious selectively feeds it to our conscious awareness, which is kind of going along for the ride in many cases.
So the subconscious kind of runs things, whether we agree or know it or not. Could you say that?
To a great extent, it does. And there's a lot of debate about whether maybe we're just automata that are subconscious, just kind of run things according to a preset pattern and adapts and adjusts to the environment. I frankly think there's a lot more to it than that. That's, of course, a kind of a materialist, physicalist explanation. Folks that don't want to believe there really is a God in the machine, so to speak.
Interesting.
Right? But it's still completely true that our subconscious does pretty much all of the work that's automated, such as heart rate. Of course, that's run by the autonomic nervous system, but the subconscious plays a role.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know the subconscious does that.
Well, that's actually another interesting topic. Remind me, and we'll get back to that. But there's a lot of stuff. So in fact, the subconscious even governs our reactions. If you're driving down the road and a kid darts out in front of your car, in less time than your conscious awareness has to recognize what's happened, your subconscious has already put your foot on the brake. And of course, that's not an automatic action. That's one that takes recognition of an issue, recognition of a problem, problem solving, and then implementing the solution to the problem. There's a whole process going on. It happens much quicker than our conscious awareness becomes aware of.
Fascinating.